Now, we're going to be talking about families in a moment, but in Africa, parents are known to pass down disciplinary methods to their children, which eventually is further passed down to the next generation. Now, barely will an African child grow up not knowing or having experienced the discipline that comes with disobedience. Now, whilst some have frowned at the old methods of correcting a child, others find it, other people rather, find it amusing and very effective.
On What Was That? Today, we have decided to remind you what African parents use as corrective measures. A case study is found in this video you're about to see, where two kids engaged in acts of disobedience leading to some damage. The parents then decided to use the invisible bike riding discipline. Please note that Breakfast Central does not prescribe or endorse all manner and forms of discipline, including this one.
Let's go down. Let's go down. I know. Good. Stand up, Emma. Go down.
Okay, so that's the video of the two young boys who have obviously disobeyed their parents and they're being punished. For those who don't know what's happening, they are being asked to squat in the bike position. It's like basically sitting on a bike. So they tell you sit on a bike and you automatically have to go down
On an imaginary bike.
Sit
actually.
on an imaginary bike. Yeah, sit on a
or
bike.
ride on it. Well, so I mean, so it's yeah. So like we said, these are things that a lot of Nigerians grew up around, and it's a good thing that we also got to mention that New Central doesn't, of course, promote or condone this type of treatment for children. But a lot of us grew up in an environment, that we had to do things like this, or probably even worse. I'm sure a lot of kids in Nigeria who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, the conversation is definitely different now in 2022. And so, when you talk about, training children across Nigeria today, a lot of people would shy away from this level of discipline. A lot of parents would, always say, use your words. Kids will, always be better trained because, they grow up with some trauma. They grow up with something, eventually when they go through this type of treatment. So I'm one of those who I'm on that, side of the fence that doesn't agree with this type of punishment, with this type of discipline. I think there's other ways that you can go about raising kids.
So another thing, and they will say again, she's talking about mental health, right? A lot of us will say that we grew up, our parents disciplined us in this way. This is the way by which Africans discipline their children. After all, we all turned out well.
Yeah.
Now look at, there's a thin line. It's a really thin line between discipline and abuse. We must be fair. It's a very, very thin line. And I'm not yet a parent. I'm an aunt, and I'm a very involved aunt in my nieces' lives. So to an extent, I can understand how sometimes children can drive you crazy.
Absolutely.
But in that moment, that's where the discipline is more on the part of the adults, learning to not react based on your emotion. That's the hardest part. When you've told them for the opportune time not to climb that chair or not to do that, and the next thing you're thinking is, but...
And I mean, in that, don't do this, don't do that, the next thing the TV gets broken.
So that's what they ask you, that if your boss upsets you at work, are you going to be so angry that you slap your boss?
Absolutely not.
You can't. So when you say, oh, I couldn't help myself with these children, you could help yourself. You just made a choice. That's what a lot of other people have argued.
There's just, a very, very clear difference between, raising kids outside Nigeria and in Nigeria. Because what's the worst? From what we see in movies, a lot of times what you hear is you're grounded. You tell a Nigerian kid you're grounded, it means nothing.
Or you tell the kid, go to the naughty corner. What is the naughty corner? Nigerian
okay,
child.
I broke the
African
TV.
child.
You're grounded. Oh, okay. But that's it. And that's why in Nigeria, in Africa, we do it different here. A lot of people grew up with cane, with slippers. There's a legend about the Nigerian mom and bathroom slippers and what they can do with it, because everybody, at some point, had to deal with it. I remember.
You're thinking if you should share this story or not.
No, but I did go through it, once or twice. It wasn't a lot. My parents were never on that level. They were never physical or, on that level. But I remember that once or twice, my mom did, pick up, bathroom slippers, on myself or my younger sister. It was, something that we lived with.
I think most African kids, in our generation experienced
absolutely,
that.
absolutely. But now the conversation is changing. It's a totally
It is
different
changing.
conversation now. Even if you would still see, you know, pockets of this type of thing going on. And another thing is, we also grew up in an era where these were things that happened with elder brothers and elder sisters. It didn't even have to be parents. You know, an elder brother who's just a teenager, you know,
Or a
would be
senior in the
punishing.
boarding house.
Exactly.
So these conversations also, in fact, the conversation is really wide because you now decide to start a life with someone as your life partner.
Yeah.
You need to find out how that person was raised, because how the person was raised ultimately, you know, impacts how they might want to raise your kids.
Yeah.
So if you believe in corporal punishment and I don't, or if you and your partner, I shouldn't be doing that. Not no way. So like a couple coming together, these are the questions they'll ask. How were you raised? How was I raised? How do we intend to raise our children? And the fact that something was done a certain way to you does not necessarily make it right.
Yes.
You are allowed to change. You're allowed to decide what becomes your norm. These norms that we've said are our norms, are things that we saw other people do, and over time, because they repeated it over and over again, it became a norm,
culture.
it became accepted. So you can decide what your norm is, and it'll be great. Maybe when I have my kids, I will come back and tell you people about what I have decided to do to discipline them. But for now, let's